We are like one of these first train that arrives on time. So it's, or departs on time. Exactly 2 minutes to go, and we will start.
So we are waiting for the time.
Oh, yes. So, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the audience here today, we are today discussing here in this room the specific topic of the new centrality of Central Asia, or we could even rephrase it, centrality of Central Asia. The geopolitical movements in the past decades have disrupted the traditional trade routes, energy links, even digital links. That meant that in Europe, we have started to redefine how we see our neighbors, how we see our friends, how we see other parts of the world. At the same time, the other parts of the world have seen differently Europe. And that's exactly what we will be focusing today when we are discussing about strategic region of the Central Asia. Not a place in between, but the power in its own. A potential hub for sustainable connectivity, for energy diversification, for global resilience. We are already witnessing this transformation today. We see that the Trans-Caspian international transport route is gaining the importance. These are the facts. We can look at the numbers of the trucks, the trains, the volumes of trade, which is increasing and increasing as we speak. We can also see that the new ports are being modernized in the Caspian, that the new railways are being modernized, that energy links are being strengthened. All this is reshaping the traditional cooperation and traditional trade between Europe and Central Asia. In that respect, the European Union has responded, both politically as well as practically. When it comes to politically, we have seen more engagement in the last years than we have seen perhaps for decades, including the first summit in Samarkand between EU and the Central Asia. But this also have a very concrete result. And the concrete result is the finances which are dedicated from the Global Gateway. A lot of money has been pledged in order to improve the connectivity in any sense. Digital, transport, when it comes to people contact, and of course, our way of working together. In that respect, Slovenia, this beautiful country, has been in the forefront. Only in the last year, I think half of the year, if I'm not mistaken, 2 official presidential visits took place. The president of Slovenia has been to Kazakhstan, and the president of Uzbekistan has visited Slovenia. At the same time, we had also 3 rounds of political consultations with Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan. This shows that even Slovenia, which is a relatively small country, can have an impact and is an essential player in this big story that we are discussing today. At the same time, Central Asia, and I'm sure that we will be hearing a lot about this today, is navigating complex relationship between China, Russia, Turkey, United States and others. But when it comes to Europe, the European approach being transparent, sustainable, based on mutual respect, is gaining traction. With all this and more, I'm very happy that we have this distinguished panel today, and we will have discussion based not only on the facts that I said today, but also, since I'm coming from transport community, we love traffic lights. We have had a small traffic light system here, so basically feel free to talk when the light is green. You know that when the light turns yellow, I heard different countries have different approaches, what happens then, but definitely you know what to do when there is a red light. With that, we will go to our first stop on our railway line, the first station. We will go to Ashgabat with Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkmenistan, Her Excellency Ms. Bashimova. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming. And we would really like to hear from your perspective. Turkmenistan has one of the important and very permanent neutrality is established as really one of the goals. How do you actually take this value of permanent neutrality in this power politics of today, where basically things are black or white, they are west or east? How do you take your policy of permanent neutrality and make it the strength, making the connections in the region that you're in between your neighbors and, of course, with the neighbors and the friends such as European Union, such as Slovenia?
Спасибо большое, господин Zakonjšek. Прежде всего, я хотела бы поблагодарить наших славянских коллег за приглашение участвовать в этом юбилейном конференции. Особую благодарность хочу выразить за отдельное внимание, которое уделяете Центральной Азии. Тот факт, что именно отдельная панельная сессия была посвящена Центральной Азии, еще раз доказывает, что Центральная Азия сегодня становится все более важной частью мировой политической и экономической повестки. Что касается, господин модератор, вашего вопроса о нейтралитете, вы знаете, что Туркменистан, будучи постоянно нейтральным государством, нейтралитет которого был трижды признан Генассамблеей ООН, видит свое именно вот постоянный нейтралитет не как самоограничение, а как инструмент доверия и практической кооперации. Позитивный нейтралитет нашей страны предполагает выстраивание конструктивных отношений со всеми странами и партнерами без исключений. Да, вот некоторые наши коллеги тоже, когда встречаемся, они спрашивают, а почему именно признали трижды резолюции, поскольку хватит же и один раз принять резолюцию, а почему именно трижды признан? Потому что мы твердо идем по тому курсу, который мы выбрали. Это двусторонние взаимоуважительные отношения со всеми странами, которым мы очень твердо верим и идем по этому курсу. Основным приоритетом, который является устав ООН и международное право. Как превенти... Извиняюсь.
Thank you for passing the word to me. Thank you to Slovenian colleagues for inviting me to this conference. And thank you for emphasizing Central Asia actually as a separate topic that deserves attention. So I think this is a proof that Central Asia is becoming more and more important in the political and economic sense worldwide, so to say. And well, Turkmenistan is constantly following the neutral policy, the policy of being neutral. And at the General Assembly of the United Nations, three resolutions have been adopted on our initiative, which is also a sentiment of our neutrality. We are trying to follow the neutrality principle. We see it as an instrument of trust, an instrument of international cooperation, and we're constantly trying to build relations in this way without excluding anybody. So why did we try to adopt 3 resolutions? Why not only 1 resolution? Well, we are trying to follow consistently this course of supporting the mutually respectful relations between all countries, and we fully support the UN Charter and the international law.
Превентивный аспект нейтралитета нашей страны выражается в раннем выявлении рисков и угроз и предупреждение конфликтов. Одним из видимых таких выражений является роль размещения в Ашхабаде регионального центра по превентивной дипломатии для Центральной Азии, где это еще дополнительная такая площадка, где выстраиваются практики раннего предупреждения и доверительных контактов между государствами региона.
So One of the aspects of our neutrality policy is early detection of risks and threats and preemptive prevention of conflict. So in our country, we have a regional center of preventive diplomacy operating, and this strictly follows the way we are seeing it. So we are trying to help the countries to prevent the possible conflicts in advance.
Политика позитивного и постоянного нейтралитета нашей страны позволяет нам не только избегать вовлечения в наднациональные и военные альянсы, но и занимать активную позицию в регионе и на мировой арене.
So our positive neutrality of our country helps us to avoid taking sides in specific multinational or military alliances, and it helps us to promote our policy worldwide.
Еще одним из таких главных нашей нейтралитет, он призван созидать. Поэтому мы всегда открыты для двусторонних отношений, для многосторонних отношений и сотрудничество с европейскими странами и особенно с Евросоюзом у нас в приоритете нашей страны.
So one of the aspects of our neutrality policy is to unite. So we are always open for bilateral relations, for multilateral relations, and we're also open to closely cooperate with European countries. So Europe, the EU, is actually one of our priorities.
На международной арене тоже стараемся быть активными. По инициативе Туркменистана 2025 год был объявлен Международным годом мира и доверия, а также мы в 2023 году устраиваем такую философию, как диалог гарантии мира. И очень такие моменты, которые, к сожалению, такие трудные моменты, вы знаете, происходят, мы все время призываем к диалогу. Вести все инструменты к диалогу для разрешения конфликта.
So our neutrality policy is also enshrined internationally by the International Year of Peace and Trust. We have also adopted a philosophy that dialogue is a guarantee for peace. So, but of course, it is difficult to uphold such values. But we are trying to call everybody for dialogue and to resolve conflicts.
Thank you very much for these explanations. Allow me just one follow-up question. You are talking about the permanent neutrality, positive neutrality, as you also call it. But at the same time, of course, you're also having a very important project, both when it comes to connectivity on the Caspian route, energy corridors, lapis lazuli corridors. And of course, that means that you also need to prioritize. You need to prioritize investments. So at the same time, you are, investing a lot specifically in transport infrastructure. So how do you decide, how do you prioritize within the concept of this permanent neutrality in which direction you will go when it comes to energy, when it comes to transport or other important elements?
Используя нейтралитет как мягкую инфраструктуру, мы настраиваем транспорт и энергетику на связь, связанную с Евразией за 2015-2021 годы. Мы в транспортно-коммуникационный сектор инвестировали более 48 миллиардов манатов. Ключевым узлом стал современный международный морской порт Туркменбаши.
So we see our neutrality as a soft infrastructure. For example, through our program with Eurasia from 2015 to 2021, we have managed to get investments into transport and communications worth more than 48 billion manats. That includes working with the port of Turkmenistan.
Что касается конкретной роли Транскаспийском и иных коридорах, ну, во-первых, мы совместно с партнерами Европейского Союза и стран Центральной Азии в октябре прошлого года запустили на высоком уровне координационную платформу Транскаспийского транспортного коридора в Ашхабаде. Это механизм такой вот единого стола, где синхронизуют проекты.
So we must emphasize the role of corridors, such as the Trans-Caspian corridor. In October last year, within this Trans-Caspian corridor, we have launched a platform in Ashgabat that allows us to observe all the projects within this initiative on one place.
Thank you very much. And indeed, I think the connectivity, specifically, of course, when it comes to corridor, it is about the connectivity of Central Asia and, of course, with other partners, including the European Union. From Tashkent, from Ashgabat, we go now to Tashkent, the next stop of our train journey. Deputy Minister Madrakhimov, welcome, and thank you very much for being here with us. Uzbekistan has really pursued the multi-vectoral approach to its both the foreign policy, but also to the regional integration. The first summit between EU and the region has actually happened in the beautiful city of Samarkand. At the same time, your infrastructure is not only developing, but is also being modernized, both when it comes to the rails, the high-speed railways, as well as the rest. And that, of course, poses the opportunities as well as the challenges. How do you balance specifically, and prioritize the, let's say, east-west connections on one hand, to the middle corridor, Trans-Caspian corridor, but also, of course, the other corridors which exist as well. For example, via Afghanistan to the all the way to the Indian Ocean. How do you, in this world that we were talking today and in this conference, prioritize this, and where do you see the opportunity for the strengthening of cooperation, specifically between EU and your country and the region?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm very happy to be here today among you in beautiful Bled. The Bled Strategic Forum continues to play a unique role as a platform for meaningful dialogue between West and the Global South. Central Asia, which I represent, brings to the world a culture of dialogue, tradition of good neighborliness, and ability to find common ground even when the differences seem unsurmountable. This is why it is so important today to hear the voice of our region, which is steadily becoming a key factor of stability and cooperation. Coming back to your question, for Uzbekistan, multi-vector foreign policy is not a slogan, but strategic choice. It reflects both our geography and lessons from our history. We sit at the crossroads of Eurasia, where the interests of major powers intersect. Our experience has taught us that lasting stability and sustainable growth cannot rely on one direction or one partner. They require diversification, balance, and ability to engage constructively with all. That is why Uzbekistan builds relations in every direction in ways that are not competing, but complementary. With Russia, we maintain long-standing economic relations, especially in trade, energy, and labor markets. With China, we are advancing transformative infrastructure projects, such as China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway, which will reshape east and west and southbound trade flows. With Turkey, we are working closely as it expands its political and economic engagement in Central Asia. With the United States, the emphasis is on investment, technology, and security cooperation. With partners like South Korea and Japan, we focus is on advanced manufacturing, education, and innovation. Each of these partnerships brings unique strengths, and together they make Uzbekistan and we think Central Asia more resilient. Europe's role is distinct, but not in competition with others. What Europe brings is a combination of investment and predictability, technology and transparency, infrastructure and sustainability. Through global gateway strategy, EU is building connections that are not only physical, but also institutional, ensuring that projects are rule-based and designed for long-term benefit. This approach matters for Uzbekistan. Since 2017, our reform agenda has aimed to create a more open economy and more accountable state. The EU's emphasis on governance, inclusiveness, and rule-based cooperation reinforces these efforts and gives our partners confidence that progress is lasting. We view the EU's approach as a natural complement to our own priorities. At the same time, Central Asia itself is changing. For the first time in many years, our countries are building a culture of cooperation and finding common ground on strategic issues. The consultative meeting of our heads of state, launched in 2018, have created trust and allowed to set common priorities. This has strengthened our collective voice and made the region a more predictable partner. Economically, we're growing fast, already over $400 billion in combined GDP, and by purchasing power, more than $1.5 trillion. We're home to over 80 million people, more than half of them young, digitally connected, and entrepreneurial. Human capital is becoming the most important strategic resource, and it is where we see great potential for cooperation with Europe in education, technology, and innovation. Another area where Central Asia is moving forward is energy transition. Our countries are investing heavily in solar, wind, and hydrogen. Uzbekistan has set an ambitious target to raise the share of renewables in our energy mix significantly by 2030, at least a quarter of total generation. And we are already on track with major solar and wind projects. These steps meet our domestic need and also strengthen regional and global climate security. This is the field where cooperation with the EU is especially timely and beneficial. Connectivity is often discussed in terms of corridors, with the middle corridor across the Caspian Sea or southern routes through Afghanistan to Indian Ocean. For Uzbekistan, this is not about choosing one over the other. All of these routes are very vital for Uzbekistan. The middle corridor is already a secure and efficient link to Europe, lowering costs and making supply chains more reliable. Southern route is more complex, but it opens direct access to South Asia and the Indian Ocean, which is crucial for long-term integration. Our strategy to advance all the routes. Because in today's unpredictable world, resilience comes from diversification. The more corridors that are developed in and through Central Asia, the stronger and more reliable our region becomes as a partner for Europe and Asia alike. In this effort, Europe is a crucial partner. For us, connectivity is more about than transport links. It is about building trust, anchoring long-term investment, and ensuring that our region is reliably integrated into global value chains. Central Asia offers Europe direct access to dynamic Asian markets and significant resources, while Europe offers us advanced technologies and one of the largest consumer markets in the world. This mutual interest makes cooperation natural and enduring. Our vision is clear. Central Asia is no longer a periphery or silent corridor. It is becoming an active participant in global processes, a region that strengthens stability and offers predictable solutions. A stronger and more integrated Central Asia also means a more stable and secure Eurasia. Uzbekistan is committed to deepening this transformation together with Europe and with all our partners to create a more stable, connected, and cooperative region.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I think this is music to our ears. Where can we sign? Let me follow up with one question, which is perhaps slightly provocative.
Yes.
I think that we can all agree with what you said, predictable, rule-based. This is exactly what we like. However, what would be your criticism? You know, I think we are among friends. Where could we, as European Union, do more? What would be your wish?
We wish we could move faster on strategies that were announced during the first ever EU Central Asia Summit in Samarkand back in April. Immediately after the announcement of 12 billion euros for Central Asia on the projects, within a week we submitted 21 projects worth 5 billion euros. And all the projects that not only beneficial for Uzbekistan, but for the region, with the region in mind. And we're still waiting for the follow-up from the feedback from the European partners, whether the projects needs to be tweaked, whether they are feasible or not feasible. So we need the feedback from our European partners. And we announced this strategy in April, and we're expecting a forum in Brussels in October. And it will take some time before we see from announcement to, working on the projects, concrete projects, when we see the concrete implementation of the projects. So we wish this, the lengths of between announcement and implementation were much shorter.
I think, Deputy Minister, these are exactly the words that we hear a lot, both from the Western Balkans. We discuss this a lot here as well, but also within the EU. And of course, when it comes to the rule-based, the process-based organizations, of course, things take time. But definitely, I think one thing that is very clear: prioritization, maturity of the project, and speed is essential, because in the end of the day, you want to see the projects on the ground for your citizens.
Of course, world is changing very fast, and we should move along with it, to be in sync. So, but we're definitely ready to working with our EU partners in seeing this implementation of this project, all the projects that announced in Samarkand.
Thank you very much. And of course, we have now put on spot EU Special Representative. That's exactly why we had this question planted there. So thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for helping me for that. But here we have the EU Special Representative for Central Asia. Thank you very much for being here. And indeed, I think we have heard the engagement of the EU when it comes to Central Asia has really stepped up in the last years for various reasons. But we are now where we should be in the terms of political engagement, in the terms of the summits, in terms of the political visibility and commitments. What we now, of course, specifically through the Global Gateway need to see is the concrete things on the ground, being energy, transport, digital, or people-to-people contacts. Now, I would like to ask you from Brussels' perspective, or from the EU perspective even more, this change that we are seeing and we are hearing with our friends here, how is this translated in a concrete way? What do you see the biggest challenges? And of course, also, how do you see the future? And I think that, and of course, how do you answer the slight critique of the Deputy Minister as well? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Matej. First of all, I share frustration of the Deputy Minister.
Thank you.
When I joined Latvian Foreign Service back in 1993, I was the first and the only desk officer for European Communities, EFTA, and European Economic Area. And over those years, I learned a good part of how the EU decision-making is working, and I would probably sometimes compare it to good wine or cheese which needs to mature, sometimes excessively, but still. So, but indeed, probably we are living in times when decisions should be taken much faster. We'll see. Probably this is something to do also with Central Asia being victim of its own success. Because unlike from other parts of the world, we don't have so many bad news coming out of the region. And of course, when you look at the decision-making in Brussels, we are coming, many sort of the competing issues coming up, more burning at that moment. Would it be Ukraine? Would it be Gaza? Would it be Great Lake region? So, yes, in a way, I know it is frustrating, but at least part of my job is trying to get it a little bit more streamlined. If you would allow me, I would first probably try to somehow to correct one of the first postulates you had, that like we are discovering the centrality of Central Asia. I must say it was always there. Probably it's rediscovered once more. And this is, again, probably something to do about our sort of the Eurocentric approach to everything. When we look on the map, the Central Asia is on periphery. In fact, if you look at our continent, Eurasia, the Central Asia is in the very center of it, by the name of it, and it's Europe which is on periphery. So sometimes we need to change our viewpoint to understand what could be done and what should be done. And I think the good sign is that already back in 2007, within the European Union, there was a clear understanding that we need a long-term strategy on working with Central Asia. It was several times updated. The latest edition of our strategy is from 2019, just before the global pandemic. Then, to implement it, a joint roadmap was adopted actually together with the countries of Central Asia, by the foreign ministers in 2023. And actually what we are doing now is very much practical implementation of this joint roadmap. Of course, we have a sort of the new pushing point coming from the first ever, as was mentioned, summit between the European Union and Central Asia, which took place in Samarkand in April. So there were many new good ideas. Some ideas probably not so new, but probably rethought and presented in a new way, on which we must work together. And I sincerely believe that indeed by meeting in Brussels in October on the Global Gateway Forum, we'll be able to present our sort of the comprehensive reaction to those proposals coming from all countries of the region. And when we say why Central Asia is important to us, those 5 countries are unique in a sense that they are integral part of European security architecture. Don't forget, all 5 of them are members of the OSCE. All 5 of them subscribed to the principles declared in the Helsinki Final Act. I mean, the big anniversary we actually celebrated earlier this summer. So, maintaining dialogue, political dialogue, economic cooperation is a part of this, as we call it, indivisible security structure in Europe. And yes, it's also, frankly speaking, it's not fully altruistic. There are benefits we can draw from this cooperation in Europe as well. We shouldn't look at Central Asia only as a receiver of whatever goodwill we may have and financial support. No, this is mutually beneficial cooperation in many areas. What was already mentioned, okay, it's of course, it's energy. We are moving now to critical raw materials, which is the new, very important part of our strategic cooperation. And indeed, since Samarkand, we have a strategic cooperation, as announced in a joint declaration by leaders. So we are speaking about the connectivity, which is both important for Central Asia as a destination or the origin point of exchange, should it be the trade exchange, should it be the human exchange, but also as an important connecting link for us to reach the Far East or to South Asia?
Allow me to push you a little bit with a friendly push. The first thing is, when it comes to maps, I'm not sure. Even when you go to Australia, Australia is in the middle and everything else is in the periphery. So, but when it comes to the remark of the Deputy Minister, how do we make sure that now, I think we all agree, Central Asia is not a place in between. It has important dynamics in itself, and we all profit from our cooperation. We all agree that the politically relationship has now been on the highest level that has been perhaps for decades. But now, how do we make sure that all of this and all of this goodwill that at the moment, for various reasons, exist, that actually comes down to the projects on rail, on roads, on energy, and that projects will happen not in decades, but in our future, let's say. How do we make sure, and how will Global Gateway achieve that?
Indeed, I fully agree that meetings of leaders, it's important, it's very symbolic. It's very important in creating mutual confidence, which is crucial for cooperation, but it needs to trickle down to the working level. And those working levels are, of course, the closest one we could get would be ministerial. It's also direct work between officials at the practical level, experts, also between companies. Because at the very end, in most cases, we are speaking about the private businesses who are going to implement many of those very bright and good ideas. So this is why we are organizing together with our partners in the region those business forums, the closest ones specifically oriented and going into the area of implementing those decisions adopted in Samarkand will take place in Tashkent in November. End of November, we will have one on investments and another one specifically on transport and connectivity. So bringing together political level, ministerial level, bringing together businesses in these areas. I mean, we're speaking, and in case of Europe, I mean, we're speaking predominantly about the private business, whom we need to convince that Central Asia is a safe destination for their investments, that it's not only, sometimes as some of them might think that it's high risks, high rewards. No, that this is something where you can go and do your business on a sort of the sustainable basis.
Thank you very much indeed. So we need to get our hands dirty. We need to bring the businesses in. We need to start digging. We need to start bringing, translating from political to practical. And that's exactly what we hope is happening already on the ground and going to Kazakhstan. And of course, also the businesses, the projects, what is happening on the ground, EU ambassador in Kazakhstan, and of course also Slovene. So Slovenia also has, of course, this hat on in Aleška. Welcome. Can you tell us how what we were talking before on the, let's say, declaratory level is translating on the ground where you are? And specifically, where do you see, when it comes to implementation, where the things could be even more efficient or faster? Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Matej. Thank you, everybody. I'm really honored to be here. I appreciate it. In my home country, it's not such a usual thing. And particularly because I can also speak as a European actually sitting in Astana, and there are many of us. I'm just one of very few Slovenes, and I have a former state secretary here who has visited Astana and organized a reception for Slovenians, and there were 3 of us there. So I have to say that we are not so omnipresent, but I consider myself there as a European. And in that sense, I get to say that it is quite a perspective. Because perhaps to start with the title of this session, I really like the fact that we have put Central Asia, and I have to commend, first of all, the BSF for organizing this absolutely fantastic forum. I have to say it, and since I have a platform, I'll do it. But also to put Central Asia. one thing is, indeed, Central Asia has always been there. But I have to say that sitting in Astana or sitting in Central Asia, you don't always see that it is seen from Brussels or from Europe, for that matter. So we have to bring it closer to the European countries. There have to be more visits. There have to be more connections and more connectivity. And that's maybe my first thing. The second thing is, and what I wouldn't want to see is maybe a little bit linking to what both deputy ministers have said. While that's Central Asia is an important part, we Europeans tend to see it as something connected to something else. We don't see Central Asia as it's useful, Central Asia as such. I think Deputy Minister has spoken about the population. I heard about Kazakhstan that in 2030, 30% of population will be under the age of 30, which for a European is a dream. So that's the thing that is there. Central Asia should be seen on its own. We tend to see it in connection either as a security because of Afghanistan, or we tend to see it as something that can overtake, I mean, that we can deal with now when we have problems with Russia. We don't tend to see it as Central Asia as such. So I think that's probably the first thing that I'd like to say from the point of view of a European sitting in Astana. And now to go more to your concrete question, indeed, I cannot say that it's not being done. I mean, I take point of what Deputy Minister have said. Yes, we are slow. And if I may quote my former colleague, or my current colleague, but my former deputy minister in Kazakhstan, who may actually say some things in that sense, I think the bureaucracies are strong on both sides. It's not only the European bureaucracy that is so slow. It is also the, I can speak for Kazakhstan, but I guess similar is in other Central Asian states, the bureaucracies are strong also in those countries, which makes processes simply slower. And at the same time, we are doing things. I mean, the 12 billion that has always been out there, it's an offer. It's not something that is standing, the money that is there and is, you know, just somebody is grabbing it based on whatever, I have a good idea, let me just do it. As you rightly say, it has to be evaluated, it has to be looked at from the point of view of sustainability, you know, environment, and all these other challenges have to be looked at, and has to be made as an offer to the companies and to the financial institution to actually find something interesting to do there. I think we all have on declaratory level, transport is an important area. I can give you an example since you particularly asked about the concrete things. As you know, in Kazakhstan, there are two ports, Aktau and Kurik, who are linking the Caspian Sea to the other side, to Baku. And now EBRD has just invested, I think, 30 million to upgrade the cranes in Aktau port. So port infrastructure is something we are very, very much invested in. On energy, we are investing here. It's not in Kazakhstan, but it will affect also Kazakhstan. Water, hydropower. That's the things that we are working in Rogun, and there's investments there. On the digitalization, another part of important connectivity. Kazakhstan is a huge country, and of course it doesn't really make any sense to put cables, optic cables. So we look at the satellite connectivity, and we are just investing some 10 million, or is it more, maybe even into connecting schools. So it will be by the end of the year, some 300 schools will be connected via the satellite. So there's a lot of little but big things that are actually happening on the ground that I can say that is there. And that's maybe that. And maybe one very last point, because I see that there are also some representatives from the companies, because when the president of Slovenia visited Kazakhstan in March, she brought along a big company, group of companies. That's where we have to get interest in Central Asia. And they are interested, but I think that there is a bit of a cultural challenge here, because somehow our businesses, meaning European businesses, counting Slovenian there, they think that there will be opportunity and they will come and the businesses will connect. I think what we as Europeans have to find out, there is a relationship building. So there has to be something of going there, of seeing, of getting to know the area and getting to know the people and build relationship, and then the businesses come. But that's how I see it happening. So investment of that.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think this is indeed exactly one point that I really see that we need to drive home. Because my question was, how many of these companies that are involved in Kazakhstan at the moment are Slovene? Well, probably not many, but I hope they are. But my point is that I think that we need to do our own homework when it comes to Global Gateway, and I now talk as with my Slovene hat on, to make also sure that the opportunities of the Global Gateway, of everything that is happening, are known, and that we make them attractive, and that we connect also with our friends, and we have connections on a diplomatic level, on political level, and that we make this happen. No, it will not happen overnight. It will need the relationship building, but if we don't start this today, we will never be there also as Slovene. I'm taking my Slovene hat off. But saying that, that's why I think we need to also really make sure that Global Gateway start delivering on a concrete actions. And I think that another a very key word that was said today here, complementarity. How do we make sure that we complement of what you're already doing? Because of course we are not talking of something from the start, but what you're already doing, and basically build on that in the mutual interest. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We are now going to Kazakhstan, but basically Kazakhstan in Brussels. Kazakhstan in Brussels, we have Ambassador of Kazakhstan to Belgium and Head of Mission to the European Union as well as to NATO here. Now, of course, you have heard your colleague in Astana from the European stance. How does this Kazakhstan is a huge country, and of course when it comes to also the connectivity, both on the northern route through Russia, which is of course now compromised, but also the middle corridor or Trans-Caspian corridor, your investments there. How do you see the changing geopolitical also reality on the ground, and also everything that the EU is now doing reflecting in specifically investment in your country?
Thank you so much, Matej. It's really hard to speak after such an illustrious panel, especially since it's also hard to speak because almost every single point that I wanted to talk about was already mentioned by my colleagues from Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, from the EU. But I will just add a few general words and then go back to your question. Indeed, what we see now in Central Asia is the renaissance of sorts, and the rediscovery of centrality of Central Asia has happened not just in the European capitals, but also in our own capitals, as we now cooperate much more closely together, and it's a much more united region which speaks with one voice and which resolves by itself its own problems. So I think this change that took place over the past 10 years or so has been both geopolitical and geo-economic, and it will have consequences for how the region develops and how it develops its relations with the EU and with other outside partners. Needless to say, there is a platform for 5 of us to meet regularly at the level of the President and national security advisors and the foreign ministers, but there is also 13 platforms that bring Central Asia plus all the other outside actors. But I think that Central Asia in that sense is becoming a more coherent region, a region that knows its place and knows where it's going. So I think it's not about where we're now, but where we are going. We heard the word crossroads. It used to be a crossroads of civilizations, now crossroads of ambitions of outside players, but I think it is a connector and a builder of its own future now. And we are building this future together with outside partners. So for us, another word that was already mentioned, complementarity is a key word. For us, the Global Gateway Initiative or the Belt and Road Initiative pursued by China, they are very much complementary, and that's why we believe that the more the better. The more investment, the more active investment by the outside partners, the more investment by ourselves is better for the development of the region, for the development of the infrastructure in the region. And that's basically, I think, where the sources for investment have been coming from, and we hope that that's where they will be coming from in the future, meaning outside partners and grandiose initiatives such as Global Gateway. Then, of course, Belt and Road, among the ones I mentioned, but also our own sources. In fact, Kazakhstan has invested $35 billion in the past 10 years, and we will be investing about 20 billion more in the next 5 years or so to build up infrastructure. We already built 2,500 kilometers of new railways in the years of independence. We are upgrading 2,000 railways, kilometers of railways now, and we will be building 2,000 more in the next 5 years, all of which is meant to reconnect the country. It is indeed huge, but reconnect from in the east to west direction, because there was very limited connectivity that way, and that's exactly where we need this connection right now. And already we are seeing results. This middle corridor has seen the volumes of transportation growing 8 times in the 4 years since we all began paying so much attention to it. So from 800,000 tons in 2021 to 4.5 million tons last year. That's still a very modest figure compared to what goes still via Russia, and that's still a very valid corridor. It is indeed not seeing its best days, but for us as a country that is in the heart of Eurasia, as our region is in the heart of Eurasia, it's important to develop all corridors, east, west, and north, south as well. And yeah, I will just echo the messages from my colleagues earlier that we basically need to be more proactive. There is a Kazakh saying which roughly translated means when there is a moment you reap. Now is the time to reap. Because we've planted so many seeds, we've developed strategies, we've established coordination platforms, we've announced 10 billion euros of investment in the Trans-Caspian infrastructure in the forum in January 2024. We heard the announcement from the President of the Commission about the 12 billion euros about which my dear friend and colleague Aleška just spoke about. And yet, there is a big question about where and what have we done together. It's not a critique of the EU. Brussels bureaucracy is stronger than Kazakhstan's, I would say. But we're getting there in terms of learning from good experiences and bad experiences. But no, I think it's a critique for all of us that we need to be really more proactive, more strategic in vision. There is no lack of vision. There is no lack of programs. There is no lack of strategy. I don't want to say there is lack of action. I say let's have more action. That's our message.
Then allow me to follow up with a question. Of course, we are here discussing specifically the connectivity and connections between Europe and Central Asia. But when we are talking about corridors, when we are talking about Silk Road, we think about one road, and of course that's not the case. It was never the case. No. When we talk about rail, we think about one rail, but that's not the case. It's about actually a network, and that network starts in Central Asia and start with you and then your neighbors. That's the heart of the network. So what are you doing in Central Asia between yourself to make sure that you have a predictable network? What I mean with that is that you have agreed network among yourself, network of road and rail, that says this is what we will invest in the next 5, 10, 15 years, because this is what businesses want. They want predictability and they want stability. So what are you doing in order to make sure that there is a central plan, let's say central in the terms of the Central Asian plan of predictability that can then, of course, connect east or west or south or anywhere else in the world?
Okay. Well, what has happened in the past several years was that our leaders have got together and have first agreed to sign the treaty on friendship and strategic cooperation in the 21st century. Now it has been signed by 4 countries, and hopefully it will be signed by the 5th, and then we will proceed to the ratification. Then they adopted the Central Asia Vision 2040, which deals with a lot of strategic issues, including on how to build up our cooperation in infrastructure and in transport as well. Perhaps we're not there yet in terms of where the EU is in terms of drafting like 10T a network of 10 routes. No, we don't have that, but we're not building this infrastructure from scratch. It existed there. It existed along the traditional routes of the Silk Road. It was built in the Soviet times, yet a lot of it went into disregard, shall we say, in the first years of independence. Now it's changing. So in the next period, I would imagine that we would all agree on what needs to be done in terms of infrastructure.
Would you say, and this is perhaps the question for all, the EU, together with EBRD, has a few years ago published the study connecting basically Europe and Central Asia with very concrete, I think it was 33 connectivity projects on the prioritization. Are these projects, this study is now maybe 1 or 2 years old, huh? Is this priorities, the priority projects that the EBRD has identified, do you believe this is the way to go? This is the blueprint when it comes to also, for example, Global Gateway?
I would leave it to my colleagues also to comment on, but I have not heard any single country in Central Asia objecting to this. In fact, the EBRD developed this study on the basis of cooperation with the regional countries. So, indeed, 33 hard infrastructure projects and 8 or 7 soft infrastructure projects, which we generally agree to. It's not something that we have adopted. That's why I said there is no like blueprint among the 5, but it's something we agree.
Deputy Minister.
I would fully echo my colleague. You know, as he said, these all projects were designed together with us. So we fully support it, and it's you know, in our best interests.
And you're already working on them. It's not like that this is waiting.
No.
So that is, I think, this is the dynamics that we need to see. That if we are also, of course, if we want to keep pace, we also, of course, the things are changing as we speak, and that is good, of course.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Is that the case for Turkmenistan as well?
Да, благодарю вас. Мы тоже полностью поддерживаем наших коллег. Европейский банк реконструкции и развития провел анализ, где мы уже, как я говорила, на платформе, на базе платформы есть некоторые проекты уже, которые можно просто уже начинать. Есть проекты, есть ресурсы, можно начинать, и мы поэтому ждем, как говорится, работы. Так что нормально.
We fully agree with our colleagues. Yes, the EBRD has made an analysis, and on the basis of the platform, there are specific projects and there are sources that allow us to actually begin working. So we're waiting to begin, to proceed.
Thank you very much. And this is exactly basically where the Europe, you know, the strategic approach should be focused on. Concrete projects, both in the soft infrastructure, but of course also in the hard one. Thank you very much. The last speaker on our list is, of course, we are going all the way to Tajikistan. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for being with us. You have heard your colleagues. I think that you can also say that a lot what you wanted to say was already repeated, perhaps. But if you reflect from your position, from Tajikistan, is what you have heard, does this resonate with you, with the needs of your country? And of course, also perhaps giving a little bit wider lens. You are also, of course, your neighbors in the neighboring countries. You have Afghanistan, you have other countries also in Asia, in Central Asia, in East and Southeast Asia. How does what Europe is doing and what you are doing also connect to the situation with your neighbors? How do you, do connectivity on one hand with the one part of your country and towards the west, as well as towards the south or east?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Exactly. I subscribe to all points indicated by my colleagues here, because as it was already said, we have almost all our challenges and all our achievements are common. So we have to move together. I like actually the title of our today's gathering, a new centrality of Central Asia. Of course, it has a meaning. Why? Because as it was already mentioned, Central Asia once upon a time had its centrality. And if we talk about the Silk Road times and etc., that connected not only economically, socially, politically, but also culturally, linguistically, historically, really in terms of religion. Also, it was the center of the bigger part of the world. So, but I would like just to point out on three aspects that that we talk today. So it's the first one is, I mean, in the beginning we've been talking about the multi-vectoral policy or approach by our neighboring country, Uzbekistan. So years ago, my president also announced the so-called open door policy for Tajikistan. So this kind of approaches, I think, become obvious, first of all, because of the necessity. Because we understand, and also hopefully and thankfully, our leaders, we came to understanding and acknowledge that in order to withstand with modern challenges, with modern problems, we have to be integrated. Only as a region we can withstand with all of these new challenges, modern challenges and difficulties. So on the connectivity, also of course we are fully cooperating with our neighboring countries, with our brotherly countries, although the situation might be different because of geographic situation of the countries, because of the terrain. Tajikistan is occupied its territory by 93% by mountains, for example, and to build a kilometer of off-road in mountains and in the valley is totally different.
You must feel like home here, no?
Exactly.
Slovenia.
Yeah, very close to our mountains. Although these mountains are very green, because of the climate again, very humid climate. In our case, it's a dry climate. Only during spring we have these green mountains. So that's why from the first years of our independence, our president has announced 4 strategic goals. 2 of them are very relevant to today's discussions. The first one is the elimination of transport deadlock, because we are a landlocked country. And second one is gaining energy independence. So these 2 strategic goals are very correspond too closely to firstly to the subject, and also in order to provide connectivity both in transport and also in energy. And you rightly mentioned the situation of Tajikistan. We share 1,400 kilometers of border with Afghanistan, with all of its challenges and advantages and disadvantages. So if we talk, we face every day all kinds of trafficking, starting from trafficking of drugs and ending with trafficking of weapons and even trafficking in human beings. So nevertheless, the one of the regional projects, which is called CASA 1000, that means Central Asia, South Asia, is directed for transmitting of electricity from Central Asia to South Asia, and it goes through Afghanistan. So now I think this project has very bright future, because it will give also possibility to European countries to think how we can work on and cooperate on in the energy sector.
Thank you very much. And let me just mention 2 things that you have really stressed, and I think they're really important. You know, on a daily basis, my focus is more Western Balkans, or completely the Western Balkans. And of course, the approach there with the connectivity with the EU is completely different. However, very similar challenges as well. And you know, the connectivity starts with the connectivity within the region. When we want to talk about connectivity between EU and the Central Asia, of course, that is without good connectivity between the Central Asia, it's useless to speak about anything else. And that's why the approach of actually connecting to neighbors and looking at this is so important. At the same time, you mentioned borders. This is also where I think a lot of work needs to be done everywhere. The goods as well as people wait too long at the border crossings, and this is one of the main bottlenecks when it comes to transport network, both between EU and its neighbors, for example, the Western Balkans, or beyond. So I think that's also a very important element. Ambassador, you wanted to come in.
Thank you very much. I mean, I first of all, I'm very much thankful, and I see that there is a lot of interest from the region of Central Asia, and we feel it all the time. Thank you. I may be ambassador to Kazakhstan, but all of that we are doing is very much regionally connected. Of course, Eduards is the Central Asia special representative, but all the projects and activities are very much regional. So everybody's emphasizing the regional cooperation between the countries, and that is something that for the European Union is extremely attractive. One thing that we did not address, and deputy ministers have mentioned multi-vector foreign policies and policies. There are other vectors there. Europe is not the only vector, and they may be in some cases faster. But I think that there is one thing that we would always want to offer. I think you have also hinted at it at the beginning, Matej, is the fact that what we are looking at when you look at the length is sustainability of the projects, is the things that look into environmental, and those are also some of the challenges. If we focus on the transport, and we are doing working in many other areas such as climate, etc., there are several challenges why we cannot connect faster. One of them is that there is the infrastructure is there, but it's maybe outdated. Second is environment. We all know that Caspian Sea is actually declining. The water levels are going down. We have to be careful when we invest in this. It's not just that we invest so that we get transport. We have to also look at the other factors. We are working with Kazakhstan, since I'm there, very much on the investment climate. There is a call for higher investments, but there is issues of rule of law because the companies have to get trust in being there. So there is a number of challenges that we are, I think, addressing very, very much together, which are not seen in the millions and billions that are being announced. And I think we shouldn't forget about when working on the ground on these things, also in comparison with what other actors are doing.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think that very much echoes what the Deputy Minister and Ambassador were saying. I think sustainability with the big S, not only environmental, but also social, also fiscal, is part of the European offer. And I think that is something that we I think can be rightly proud of. I think that brings us very close to the end. First, I would like to open the floor for any questions. Yes, we have two questions. We will first, the ladies first. So when the microphone arrives, which might be very, very quickly. Yeah, thank you very much. If you can introduce yourself and please.
Okay, my name is Musha Sever. I spent 22 years in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan. I also worked in Afghanistan, so I'm very happy that Slovenians have learned about Central Asia. In fact, there were two presidents visiting Slovenia. President Karima was here in 2005. Slovenia wasn't really aware of that. The second one came in May. I'm very happy about that. I hope that will lead to something. Slovenia still doesn't have ambassador in Tashkent. Uzbekistan is the biggest country in Central Asia. It has 38 million inhabitants, 55,000 new people per month. A dream for Europe. But my question is to an Central Asia Union, which you didn't mention. This is the new thing. My question is to the Uzbek Deputy Minister. Can you tell us a little more the changes that you have accomplished with Afghanistan? I'd be very happy to hear that.
Well, we look into Afghanistan as an integral part of Central Asia. It should be part of it. Without stable, secure, and prosperous Afghanistan, it's difficult for Central Asia to be prosperous and secure. It's directly connected to us, both historically and current in the future. As my colleague from Tajikistan said, they share very long border with Afghanistan. Our part is very small, about 100 kilometers. But still, Afghanistan, unfortunately, right now, because of what's happening in the world, in the many parts of the world, in Europe, in the Middle East, has go back as afterthought. You know, it's not on the agenda of, frankly, European countries or United States, and it's been isolated. And we know the reasons for that. The reasons for that. But the thing is that keeping Afghanistan at bay and thinking that, you know, only demanding from them, certain, in terms of human rights, respect to women and children, to right the work and the education, it will be difficult to get somewhere. Only demanding and asking them to do something and not cooperating with them will not bring anywhere. So Uzbekistan is trying to work with them directly. We're trying to, to help Afghanistan. There are, sizable population in Afghanistan. There are many millions of Uzbek people also living in Afghanistan, and we need to help them. We need to trade with them. We need to work with current authorities on, first of all, on security issues. We need to make sure that it will not become a ground for or source of instability or any attacks or anything by, whether it's remnants of Al-Qaeda, whether it's ISIS-K or other militant groups. So it is an important aspect. We need to work with them on security. We need to work with them on prevention of drug trafficking. So there are many areas that we need to work with them. And we're trying to do exactly that. We think isolation will not bring anywhere.
Thank you.
You just signed a trade union something with the council.
Council?
Let's park this topic for a bilateral discussion, and we have two short questions with short answers, please. So please, the questions from my friend.
Thank you very much, Matej.
Let your voice bring.
So my name is Marko Štucina. I'm Slovenian ambassador to Austria, but in my previous life, which ended in July, I was deputy foreign minister, and I'm happy to see many of my former colleagues here. A couple of years ago, we intentionally decided to rediscover Central Asia. And you mentioned at the beginning that we had 3 rounds of political consultations. We had 5 rounds of political consultations.
Stand correct.
I visited personally all 5 countries in the last 12 months. And we prepared 2 presidential visits. We are preparing, the ministry is still preparing a couple of ministerial visits and hopefully also some presidential visits. So we'll be working hard still. But my question is, I'm going back to connectivity, because I was struck by the opportunities that the region brings to Europe, and not to Europe, to basically the whole world at the end of the day. But still, if we are talking about the middle corridor, the transport through middle corridor today, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 5 million tons per year. Yeah? To put it into the perspective, port of Koper, which is not the biggest port in the world, but is very important, it's the only Slovenian port, has a transportage of 23 tons per year. Yeah? My question is more a statement is, you're working very hard to join the forces, but you still need to work even more to enable all these opportunities to develop in a way that it will be very beneficial to you and to us at the end of the day.
I think this was not a question, this was a motivation. So this is a motivation for all of us. So next question, please.
Same for me. My name is Daria Baudaš-Kuret. I'm ambassador at large in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia. But for the sake of the history and institutional memory, I would like to say that first Bled Strategic Forum title was Caspian Outlook. So we did not discover Central Asia, my young colleague, a couple of years ago. But that was of immense importance. Why? Because it was just 2 years before we took the presidency of the European Union, and 1 year before European Union launched the first Central Asian strategy. So we have a little bit of a credit of development relations between European Union and Central Asia. Thank you.
I think if we agree, the next Bled Strategic Forum can be called Centrality of Slovenia. And then we also put Slovenia in the middle and then everybody else around it. And then we can have a discussion. So I will close this discussion with, first of all, thanking all of you and first of all, our guests. Thank you very much for coming to Slovenia. I mean, now I hope it will be very hard to leave Slovenia. That was our intention, for you not to leave, to spend the time here, enjoy the mountains, the green mountains all year around. And allow me just a final words from my side. I have put some notes here, but I will not say everything. I'll just say the following. There were several key threads that I have heard today here. I would really focus on three. First, that connectivity in every form and shape, energy, digital, people, political, matters. And that this is something that is a vehicle for our people to live better, because this is what we want. We want Europeans to live better, we want Slovenes to live better, and we want you to live better. And if we can do this together, we have achieved our aims. Strategy 1, 2, 3, 4, 200, if we achieve with them, that is our goal. Secondly, multilateralism remains essential. In this era of power politics, and we were hearing about this today, I think what matters the most is this, that we are talking together, small countries, big countries, medium countries, large, green, yellow, this is what it matters, that we talk with each other on various forums, and that matters. And the third thing, that trust matters. I think that building trust with friends, with colleagues, with neighbors, with neighbors at large, since Slovenes are your neighbors, we are neighbors in this world, I think that that also matters. And I think that on this basis, if we build together with the concrete projects that will actually help to achieve better life for all of us, we are doing the good job. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.